Hey everyone, we are back with the Commissioner of Post-Secondary Education, Dr. Shannon Gilkey, and we're talking about a bunch of things today. But first, let's talk about what students can do to prepare for the next few months, specifically, seniors that have questions. But of course, there are other students, juniors, all that, wondering, what does this junior year mean for me, especially in a pandemic?
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, thanks again for taking some time to talk with us about higher ed. It's critically important for students making this transition from high school into post-secondary, or if you're just in the high school pipeline. I'll speak to all students. In fact, research shows us that you need to start thinking about your higher education plans as early as middle school to really start exploring those career pathways. And I would say, if I were you, the message I would send to Rhode Island is seize the moment. Get involved in something this summer as you're pivoting away from your school year, and start thinking about your higher education plans. If you're a sophomore, junior, or senior, you can do that through Enroll RI. You can do that through a college planner, and we'll have those links for you. You can do that by just filling out your FAFSA, just to get that thing out of the way, so you start learning more about how to afford higher education, whatever institution that you choose. But I would start with, looking at maybe some careers that interest you. You may have a family friend or a local community member or a teacher that can help you think about connecting you with someone that's in a career field that interests you. But also start exploring some of the different programs at institutions. It's not too late, never too late. And if you're an adult, you're not one of those sophomores or freshmen or even a graduating senior, but you're out there looking for a career change, know that higher education is for every Rhode Islander. And there's a program for every industry that Rhode Island has that leads to a good job. We want to make sure that if you're looking for a career change, we have something for you as well.
So how is the office, your office, the state, making sure that colleges and universities, sell themselves enough, share enough information to prospective students, despite, we're still in a pandemic, they're not going to have big groups coming to tour the campus?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And it's a lot tougher doing things virtually than having those traditional, college fairs you may have at a high school or at a middle school, or even have a career fair that's coupled with, the higher education, one of our college campuses. So the colleges are doing it variety. Our office is really focused on institutions looking at what the state interest is on getting folks into higher education for all age groups. A couple things we do is we partner with the Rhode Island Department of Education to help make sure that we're working with our local high schools, and schools are working with the institutions to make sure that materials are going out together. Another thing that we're doing is promoting a FAFSA completion strategy. Again, FAFSA helps you afford college. It's that free financial aid form. So those are a couple things that we focus on at the state level, so that Rhode Islanders have all the options available to them.
So it has been quite some time since I've filled out the FAFSA. What should folks know about filling that out? Is this something that they think is going to take up their whole day, that, they're not going to have the right information available, with going in blind?
Yep. So it is a complicated form, and the federal government's made some strides on trying to simplify it, but it requires some personal information that you have to have ready to go to fill it out. But there's all types of resources to help you do that. The College Planning Center has some resources. The Rhode Island Student Loan Authority has some resources to read. But the things I would say you need to make sure you have with you is your personal identification information. That's really helpful to have on hand when you go to fill it out. And also you need to have your income. And if you're a high school freshman or sophomore, junior, you need to have your parents' income. So typically having that prior year taxes completed. Those are the two critical pieces of information you want to make sure you have when you start filling it out. And if you don't have those things at handy, go ahead and get those ready so you can get prepared to fill the form out.
And on a related note, I know we've talked about this before, but I think sharing all these resources is so important. Where do you see financial aid going in the next few years? I know we've seen some developments with Pell Grants.
Absolutely. So there's a couple efforts to really help affordability at the national level in higher education. One is the doubling of Pell, and we've been advocating. And what Pell does is help you afford that 2 or 4 year degree, that extra federal financial aid. The other thing that just happened yesterday is that President Biden announced a new proposal to fund the first 2 years of community college in this country from a national level. We have an effort in the state called the Rhode Island Promise, but those are all tied to these financial aid packages, and the FAFSA form is the gate opener to those federal and scholarships and state scholarships to help you afford college.
would you say some advantages are going to college locally?
Well, it's affordability. Typically, for most Rhode Islanders, it's cheaper to stay in state than it is to go outside. Now, there are cases when you apply to a college, you may have different scholarship packages and financial aid packages to make it just as affordable. But for most Rhode Islanders, those students coming out of high school, but also our adults that really need that next credential to take that next step of their career, it's more affordable to stay in state. And also, we have a robust set of programs across our University of Rhode Island, our research institution, our community college, and our Rhode Island College, our comprehensive institution that fill all the industries that are really focused on Rhode Island jobs. And so affordability, and then really that labor market to stay in state and work here and raise your family.
So I wanted to shift gears to diversity in the classroom and on the campus. So this week on Tuesday, I did a story about Providence Public Schools receiving a $3.1 million donation from the Rhode Island Foundation to recruit teachers of color. And it's even also Brown as well investing in Providence Public Schools. Where do we stand when it comes to higher education and showing these students that they can see themselves in their college leaders?
Absolutely. It's a great question. It's one of our key priorities as the new commissioner is equity and inclusion as far as attainment in Rhode Island, but really thankful that the Rhode Island Foundation and Brown are investing in equity and inclusion for that community. I wish we could do it in every town. I think it's fantastic. One of the things that we're doing in higher ed at the state level, so Rhode Island has a goal, 70% of Rhode Islanders having some form of higher ed credential by 2025. When I came in as a new commissioner, we decided to focus that goal moving forward on equity and inclusion. So what we're doing is we're breaking down for all 39 communities how different populations of people attain more education. Because we know that if the pathway for Rhode Island to succeed in the economy, and just the right thing to do is to make sure that all Rhode Islanders, 70% or greater, from any background, any identity, has access to a really high quality higher education.
So the state really is, looking at how different pockets of different towns and cities go to college. That's interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? It varies across Rhode Island, but by and large, the research shows us that those with college higher education, typically their children get. So it's the foundation that we lay for making sure all Rhode Islanders today or in the next 5 or 10 years, then we know that it has a generational effect on income inequalities, on inequalities in the job place when it comes to leadership positions. So our role as the state higher education office is to make sure that that has access for all Rhode Islanders.
And, circling back to the thought that you said, even people with children in middle school and these students should start thinking about their future. So, what's your message to some of these middle school parents, some of these kids that, it might not be on their radar yet, or maybe it is, and they think, I need to do everything I can to make my child become a first generation college student?
That is a great question, and it was certainly something that was on my parents' radar. I'm a first-generation college student in my family, my 2 sisters and I. But the 2 messages I would say is seize the moment, particularly this summer, but also explore while you're in middle school if you're a parent. Get a variety of different options, career options. Doesn't mean you have to have your whole career picked out by the time you're in 7th grade or 8th grade or entering high school, but just knowing what's out there and looking at what interests you. We spend a lot of time in our careers working, and I know we talk about it in our household, loving what you do and making sure it provides a sustainable wage are 2 critical ingredients. So if I was a middle school parent, I would just get as many options on the table for my son or daughter.
Great. So I want to just let everyone know next week we plan on talking about commencements and college vaccinations. I know those are 2 hot topics in the higher education in the general Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Southern New England world right now. A lot of developments recently. So we'll get to that next week. So hope you join us. And then Dr. Gilkey, just wanted to get some of your final thoughts on, what is the hot topic? What is the big conversations swirling around the office of the post-secondary commissioner right now? I know you've been, meeting with the governor and whatnot every other week.
Absolutely. Well, we want to make sure that we're using the summer wisely. It's been a heck of a year for a lot of Rhode Islanders out there when it comes to education attainment, and it's been for all age groups. So we want to make sure that We're thinking about how to invest in opportunities to make sure we pivot away from this pandemic. We keep people safe. We get them in education programs that lead to good jobs. That's the type of stuff we're focused on as an agency, and with our partner agencies like Labor and Training and the Rhode Island Department of Education, is how do we help Rhode Islanders take that next step away from this pandemic?
All right, seems like a real community effort, as is every year of education. Well, Dr. Gilkey, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you at the next one, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll have some resources below. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.